Greetings. We are a group of interdimensional beings speaking to you on behalf of the Galactic Federation, and more importantly, we represent the wishes of all that is. Today, we would like to speak to you about the reality of your third dimension and how this came about and the state that you currently exist in. As mentioned in our previous transmissions, your world, or the earth plane as you know it, has been subjected to slavery. You have been for many thousands of your earth years ruled over by a group of very low vibrating energies known as the Draco-Reptilian and Orion Greys. They formed an alliance many years ago, and they have caused havoc on many planes of existence throughout the living cosmos. As they ransacked and pillaged these planes of existence, their sights were set on the earth plane as a result of a disagreement, shall we say, with all that is. This time, as a marker for this interaction would be the Orion Wars. This will be a conversation for another time. With the onset of this war, these beings set their sights upon the earth plane, as at that time upon the earth plane the beings were of a higher vibration and were following the evolutionary process as set out by all that is, for the perfect evolution of souls from one dimension to another as they progressed in their growth as a soul. These dark beings, as we call them, came into the earth's atmosphere and rained terror upon the pure beings that existed on the plane during that time. Many had foresight and were prepared for such an invasion, and so had built spaceships and during this time were able to escape. However, a majority of the population perished or were taken as prisoners. They very quickly set up their empire on this plane, as the earth cosmically is located on a very important trade route, and so these beings had much to benefit. They, in their low vibration, do not wish to ascend or take part in the evolutionary process as set out by all that is. Their intention as a species or a group wish to invade, dominate, and acquire. So in this vein, they acquired the earth plane and began to set up their ruling class in select locations all around the earth plane. When they arrived, they were unable to function within this environment as the overall frequency was of light, and so they had to shroud themselves and use other technologies that would allow them to go about their deeds. Once they set up their trading posts and their operational bases, they were able to create environments within these spaces where they could survive normally. From these holes in the ground, initially they would inspect the surface and gather information about the many that they had enslaved and came up with plans on how they would move forward so that they could emerge and enjoy the spoils of their invasion. The technology that they possessed was very advanced, and so they had ways and means to do as they pleased within the confines of the planet and its orbit. They discovered and captured the moon, and so as things progressed, they set up their outposts on the moon as well. The technology that they possessed was then implanted on the moon that would send out low-frequency vibration towards the earth plane, so that the population would be exposed to these radio waves and signals that would remove their connection from their higher light and bring their energies into a low vibrational state. When this first began as a test, many transitioned and left their body and returned to source or to the energy of all that is. These beings witnessed this as a loss, and so they paused in this experiment and further came up with an idea of creating a separate secondary dimension that would trap souls within its dimension so that they would not be able to ascend as was designed by all that is. In order to do this, they experimented with many beings in what we call the soul-scraping experiment. Through this method, as a being transitions from one life to another, the soul's energy is trapped and transferred to a prepared vessel, which would house the soul for its next incarnation. The prepared vessels were concepts prepared again through advanced technologies that could be a physical body, a partial physical and partial artificial, or fully artificial, or as you call it, a clone. These beings are able to clone a physical form and so are able to create any number of physical bodies as they choose for such experiments. And so they began these experiments in earnest and were successful. They then set up a distortion upon the earth plane that would transmit distorted radio signals through all communication methods. This method was then attuned and matched to what would be transmitted from their moon base that they were now ready to attempt for a second time. This time around they were successful, and what transpired was that when this energy was transmitted, it created an overlay upon the earth plane in the form of a dome of low vibrating energy. This energy was then fine-tuned to the distorted energy of these beings and their environment within which they could survive. The radio waves that were previously in your world was tuned to 432 Hz. With the transition that was then tuned to 440 Hz, which was a distorted signal and moved away from the natural tunes and frequency of nature, and what allowed for Gaia to connect to her celestial brothers and sisters. With the introduction of this overlay of frequency, her connection was distorted and in most cases cut off. So were the inhabitants, who were now completely imprisoned within this frequency dome. As time went on, the ruling class continued with their experiments and fine-tuned their environment. The Draco-Reptilian and Orion Grey Alliance, in their form, are large-statured, reptilian humanoid, while the Greys are smaller in stature, large-faced, large-eyed humanoid beings. You will find depictions of these two races upon your internet websites. When these beings first invaded the earth plane, they soon realized that the inhabitants were terrified of their looks and their demeanor, and so they had to find ways to rule over these beings in a more acceptable manner. So in their deviousness, they put together a ruling hierarchy, which they ruled from behind the curtain. This structure was developed over time as they infiltrated and placed their puppets and clones in leadership roles in every country, in all manner of society, and in every aspect that impacted the general population. This infiltration runs deep and is woven in every aspect of your human experience. The higher energies, in the meantime, and that of all that is, watched in horror as all of this took place. All that is and many higher dimensional evolved light beings were unable to do much, as they had to respect universal laws that were created to allow for beings to have free will. Moreover, these beings had created so much havoc on many other planes of existence that the higher energies and light beings were overwhelmed by the extent of their destruction and degradation. Over time, the higher energies, light workers, and many others regrouped and formed what is now called the Galactic Federation of Light. As things progressed, they worked their way from the outskirts of the cosmos, winning back planes of existence that these beings had plundered. The Lightworkers and the Galactic Federation had to, over many thousands of years, learn the ways of these beings in order to gain strength and intelligence, so that they could overcome them in a way that these atrocities would not take place again. We now bring you full circle to what is taking place upon your planet and the Earth plane at this time. As many of you are aware, things have shifted, and this has occurred for many reasons. Please look back on our other transmissions for these discourses where we go into more detail. You are at this time on the brink of evolving for the first time in many thousands of years from your state of being to move to the next level of evolution of your soul's journey. Let us elaborate here a bit. We are aware that as a soul you are tired and confused. You are also most likely not embodying a soul as designed by all that is since the invasion took place. It is hard for us to explain these concepts, but we will try our very best. If you can imagine a cucumber, shall we say, this shall for the moment represent your soul. One end is attached to the energies of all that is, and the other is upon the earth plane having a third-dimensional experience in order to progress on the evolutionary path as designed by all that is. During the invasion, the cucumber was sliced in half. The lower half, trapped in the soul-scraping technology, was then used as a whole or further sliced into many smaller pieces, each representing a severed part of the soul. These energies were then placed in bodies that were created by these dark forces, and so these soul fragments existed within these bodies as they lived out their new incarnation. These soul fragments, upon completion of their individual incarnations, were then returned to the remains of the severed bottom half of the cucumber. This energy capsule was a collection of confused, separate, fragmented lives, all grouped together with no connection to each other. With the advent of the Earth moving into the photon belt and the descent of the higher light upon the Earth plane, the severed top parts of the cucumber in our scenario has returned, trying to find the severed bottom halves of themselves. In many cases, this is not possible as the devastation is too much and the soul fragments do not recognize each other. There are many, however, who are able to piece things together and remember themselves for who they really are. There has also been assistance from the higher light as light workers at the onset of the cycle of light were allowed to incarnate upon the earth plane to assist beings during this time of remembrance and reconnection. Much healing is taking place upon your plane of existence at this time. As the light penetrated these dense energies, the light was able to take a stand, and all that is decreed that the Draco-Reptilians and the Orion Greys were to be banished from these planes, while the inhabitants were to be reinstated as sovereign beings once again. These transmissions are used to give you information and to assist you in finding your true inner spark that is innately connected to all that is. Once the spark is ignited and you are able to make a connection with your higher self, you are then able to begin aligning with all the other pieces of your beloved cucumber that was so savagely severed, disconnecting your beautiful soul from all that is. We ask that you take these steps in caution as you are tired, confused, and weak. So don't try to do too much at once. This information might be quite overwhelming if you are hearing it for the first time. So try to breathe it in and process it through your body and your understanding. Once this takes place, allow for a time for this new understanding to align with your higher self, and as this alignment takes place, your severed parts will soon be attracted to this higher light. The stronger your contemplations and meditations become, the stronger your connection to your higher self and to all that is becomes. You then begin to align all of your lower frequency energies into this higher light and transformation takes place. The environment that was created by these low-vibrating beings is now being dismantled. The turmoil that you witness in your government and structures within society are directly related to this dismantling. You call it the false matrix, and so it is. It is an energetic matrix that was created to keep you and your consciousness trapped and severed from all that is. As you break out of this consciously, and with the raising of your frequency vibration, you are able to see the truth for what it really is and what has really taken place. As more and more of you emerge from this slumber, you will experience a range of emotions, and we understand this. This is why we ask you to be kind to yourselves. Take baby steps as you move forward. Process all of the emotions that you experience and move forward, never looking back. Do not allow yourself to be taken down into the lower vibrating frequencies. All it takes for you to snap out of these distressing states is to, for example, listen to a piece of music that is of a high vibration. Anything that has tones relating to the love frequency and higher is beneficial to you. Meditate, do yoga, walk in nature, be present. Do not get distracted by all the negative drama that is taking place all around you. These actions are designed to drag you back into lower vibrating frequencies and environments. As these dark energy hierarchies dismantle and leave your earth plane, there are many that still believe they belong and have power. So they try their best to, in their depraved minds, create scenarios and events that bring about fear and hatred among the many. Again, stay away from these distractions. Create a daily practice within your life that will allow for your own flame to grow and to align within the higher light. We will leave you for now, as we have said much during this transmission. We encourage you to ask us questions in your comments section below, so that we may address these questions in future discourses. Blessings.